for the Albion Mag Radio Show.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning all.
It's the Albion Mag Radio Show. My name's Leon Cox, and I'm here with the head honcho, the big cheese, Dan Tester.
Thank you for comparing me to cheese. Good morning, everyone.
Which kind of, if you were a cheese, what kind of cheese would you be?
Edam.
You got a hard red rind?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks to Nick for the last couple of hours. You're listening to the Albion Mag Radio Show on 1BTN, of course. We're available online, DAB Digital, and 101.4 on the FM. Big shout out, of course, to the travelling Albion fans who are no doubt all listening in online.
Yeah, and a particular shout out to friend of the show, Joel, who came on the show when we played Coventry in the last season with his dad.
Yes.
He's a big Coventry fan. He is a Cardiff fan, and he's there today.
Oh.
But he's he's a Cardiff fan, but he's sort of an Albion fan as well.
Split loyalties.
So yeah, he'll be sitting on the halfway line somewhere, I'd imagine.
See, I'm okay with that. Some people, the most tribal of football supporters are. It's a different matter to having I've got my rubbish local team and I've got my glory hunting Premier League team. If your second team's
Yeah,
well,
if you, I've lived in London. I lived in London for a while, and it was Tottenham and Arsenal territory.
Right.
But obviously, I stuck with the Albion, and I didn't pick either one of those two.
No.
So if you move to Brighton and you've got an affiliation with Cardiff,
exactly.
then why not Albion be your glory hunting team?
Yeah, that's the place we're at now. Get involved with the show if you want. We'll discuss your posts and tweets. Follow us on Twitter at TAM Radio Show. We've got a poll, but actually it's already completed. We'll talk a little bit about the results of that in a bit. Use the hashtag TAM Radio Show. You can also post on our thread on North Stand Chat. We're also starting to make our presence felt on other social media outlets. Look out for us on whichever Brighton Hove Albion Facebook page group you're subscribed to. Most excitingly this morning, though, momentarily, just after a bit of Albion news, we're going to be talking to a former Brighton Hove Albion player. Over 200 appearances for the club, mostly at fullback, John Templeman.
255.
255.
Yes, and 18 goals.
18 goals, that is not bad.
A few of them were screamers, John, no doubt. Yeah. That's confirmed they were screamers.
Yes, I love a fullback screamer goal. It comes steaming up from out of picture, Roberto Carlos style.
Yeah, John Crumplin scored a few of them, didn't he?
Yes,
Ian Chapman did.
Against Steaua Bucharest.
Yeah, when we were 4-0 down.
Yeah.
And we came up to win 5-4, and it was only a friendly. It's such a shame, because it's a great
insane
game.
That was, yeah. We're live on air till midday. Obviously, it's only an hour and a half until kick-off. So I'll be scrabbling back home to watch the game on Sky today after having been at Goodison last week. We'll talk about that later as well. A review of that performance. Legacy episodes of this show, should let you know, are now available on YouTube. So if you want to catch up with Dean and myself and Tom and all our other lovely contributors, you can check us out on the YouTube. Just search the Albion Mag Radio Show. And, of course, a big thank you to our friends at Jalapeno Records, our favourite Brighton record label.
Absolutely.
This show is brought to you in conjunction with them. So not much news this week, but one item that really stands out is absolutely fantastic. Lewis Dunk retains his England place, despite the return of other players, despite the fact that he was playing in front of Gareth Southgate last Saturday and played a 50-yard sideways assist for Everton's one of Everton's goals. He's obviously done enough and impressed Gareth, and he's in the squad for the upcoming games, including the slightly odd one involving Wayne Rooney.
Yeah, I'd like to see Dunk get a run out.
I'm sure he will this time.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about Rooney coming back, to be honest. I mean, I know it's been spoken about a lot this week by various people in the football press. He obviously deserves tremendous respect for getting to the amount of caps that he's got.
And goals.
But, yeah, it trivialises the game, doesn't it? It just makes it a bit of a sideshow, really.
It's a commercial venture rather than
of course it is.
That said, Tanya, my partner, made a good point, which was that if we weren't personally involved in this as England fans, England supporters, and we heard that, say, Iniesta was being given one last cap, we'd probably feel a bit more romantic about it.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. I think, obviously he didn't request it. I'd like to know whose idea it was, because I bet it wasn't Southgate's.
Nike.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, there's so much, let's be honest, there's so much money in football, and what's pure, what's left that's pure about football anymore other than the supporters. It's just a bit, I don't know, leaves a nasty taste in the mouth, really.
You feel sullied and soiled.
Are we going back to cheese again? Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So on this day, you wrote a book, Dan.
I did, yes.
Yeah. On this day, this was a Monday, the 10th of November in 1947. It was a sad day at the Goldstone as two club legends departed. Team manager Tommy Cook left after 7 months in the hot seat, while Charlie Webb ended his 38-year involvement by quitting as general manager.
On this day yesterday was the Mansfield boycott game. In 96, where the official crowd was given as 1,900 at the Goldstone. So if you compare that to these days and the crowds we get at Falmer, and a gate mysteriously opened on the East Terrace and loads of us poured in. I had nothing to do with it. And loads of people poured in, and we drew 1-1 with Mansfield. And it was a wholeheartedly depressing day all round, really.
I think I gave it a miss. I honestly can't remember.
I was outside with everyone else. I was actually down on my belly looking underneath the gate of the East Stand to try and watch the action, and action in inverted commas, because there wasn't much.
No.
Denny Mundy scored. There was a pitch invasion, funny enough. There was always pitch invasions in those days.
Non-stop.
Yeah.
Mind you, it's coming back.
What, pitch invasions?
Yes, there's been a few at the London Stadium this season, haven't there?
What was the... I think I've not seen... I saw the ones last season, and the Mark Noble getting very physical with one of them.
Yeah. They've got issues there because of the track and the fact that they're West Ham fans. We can say that. We're on one BTN. On the 10th of November 1990, the match day programme included a centre page spread of a proposed new stadium.
Was that the one with the 5,000 car parking spaces?
That's right. 25,000 all-seater stadium with space for 5,000 cars. 5,000 cars. And an adjacent, so just gridlock basically on the way in and out. Adjacent full-size AstroTurf pitch.
Is this the Waterhall one? Or
a site had yet to be found for this one. Commercial director of the time, Ray Bloom, said, "We are currently losing £1,000 a day and are very nearly £3 million in debt." I know it's laughable now. We could sell a mediocre reserve centre half and raise more than that. It's not feasible to convert the Goldstone ground. Indeed, it wasn't.
No, but it could have been if they hadn't have sold the land behind the South Stand. Well, obviously that's years and years ago.
Yes.
But Alderman Clark, with the caveat he put in place on the East Terrace, with his house had to overlook the ground, which is why the East Terrace sloped off to a few steps at the bottom to the south end. Yeah. So basically, that was never going to be the sort of stadium that we need now. But it was still a great place, though, wasn't it?
Who didn't used to fantasise about owning one of those houses that overlooked
but I fantasised about scoring on that pitch many, many times. And I did once during a pitch invasion, but it doesn't count. There was
with a clod of earth?
Well, there was a ball there, and I kicked it, and it went in the goal. So it is effectively a goal, but there were about 300 people in the goal mouth. And it did take a few deflections, so I don't really think that counts.
Like that Newcastle goal. Well, we're going to speak to a man momentarily who legitimately scored in professional games for Brighton at the Goldstone. Last one, 10th of November 2009. The dawning of a new era for Brighton Hove Albion. Gus Poyet became first-team boss. It was the former Uruguay international's first time in the management hot seat after winning the League Cup as assistant to Juan de Ramos. Tottenham did win a trophy as Tottenham Hotspur in 2008. He was joined by his old Spurs teammate, as he always is, Mauricio Taricco Tano, in the assistant manager's role. I'm not sure if they're still working together or indeed if Poyet's currently working. Anyway, never mind. That's all in the past now. Chris Hughton's the man. Welcome, John Templeman.
Thank you. Good morning.
Absolute pleasure to have you here. Over 250 appearances for the Albion.
More than I anticipated.
More than you realised.
Yes,
and a bunch of goals too.
Yeah, it's just a few.
Yeah.
18, I'm very proud of that.
That is
actually.
good. That is. I mean, I think like Gary Neville as a right back who played a similar number of professional games, maybe more, but he didn't score that many goals.
No.
Yeah. Did you take set pieces?
Once.
All right.
It happened to be the first game of 71-72 season where we were playing away at Port Vale. We had a free kick. We 1-0 down. Free kick with about 10 minutes to go, and Eddie Spirit was there on the ball. I said to Eddie, just touch it to the side and I'll hit it. So that's what we did, and it actually went inside the near post, and
lovely.
We ended up with a 1-1 draw. Although we played very, very well and should have been, won the game quite easily. But that was a game, first goal scored during that promotion season. And of course, I scored the last goal of the season as well at home to Rochdale in front of a very large crowd at the Goldstone. But I did score 2 in one game, actually, that same season.
Not too shabby.
Away at Halifax, we won 5-0. And I struck 2. One from outside the box, hit the inside of the near post and went across the goal, into the goal. And the second goal, I struck it, hit the far post, inside the far post and went in. So a bit fortunate, but I should have got a hat-trick because I was through with only the goalkeeper to beat. Decided to try and pass it underneath him rather than blasting it, and the goalkeeper stepped it the right way and saved it.
Is it true one-on-ones are sometimes the hardest because you got too many options?
So. I think so. Yeah. I think you've got to be you've got to have in your mind what you're going to do, stick to it, and follow it through. But to be uncertain what you're going to do until the last minute, I don't think it's very
especially
helpful.
Not if you're like a natural striker.
Well, exactly. I was playing midfield that season,
right.
And although I played up front as a schoolboy, as a youth team player.
Best players, best kids always do, don't they? They always put them up front.
I think so. It's a glory part of the game.
Yeah.
But they soon pushed me back into midfield and fullback.
Did you ever get did the manager ever call you out for neglecting your defensive duties while getting? Because you obviously like to get forward.
No, I can't remember any instance of being reprimanded for being too far forward. No. So
Did you used to bust a gut? Like getting up and down the whole game?
Yeah. I mean, I think the hardest role I had to play was when I went to Exeter. And I was playing right back, but I was expected to patrol the whole of the right-hand side of the pitch. So I was busting a gut to do my overlaps, and then as soon as it broke down, I was having to bust a gut to get back. So that wasn't.
And you were a mere whippersnapper at this age.
Well, I was in my late 20s at that time, and in fact, actually, I did have a little bit of a bust up with the manager, John Newman, who was criticising me for not getting back on one occasion, and I won't repeat what I said to him.
Probably
it's just a family show.
It is, absolutely. So you must watch Bruno playing for the Albion now at 38 and just be supremely impressed.
Yeah, he's incredible. The guy's so dedicated to the game and to Brighton, and I love watching the guy play. And I think any youngster who's got visions of becoming a right back would take a lot of
totally agree.
Brilliant. He's done very, very well for the Albion.
Got a message here from my father outlaw because me and my partner aren't married, but he says he remembers you from the 60s.
Right.
Remembers John scoring a goal at Mansfield as a sub when fans hero Charlie Livesey, who scored in the first half with a banana shot, then broke or dislocated his arm. So Templeman came on and did well. We won 3-1, I think.
That's right, yes.
Wilf Tranter scored the first.
Yes.
Must have been 67-ish, I'd say.
It was about that time, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
My first away game with my mates.
Oh, right.
It was, and he still goes to this day.
Right.
He's in his mid-late 60s now.
Yeah.
First aggro too, as I remember knocking a Mansfield fan down the terraces. Players had to drive to Mansfield as the trains were on strike. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, that does ring a bell. Same happened at Halifax. Our coach broke down and we had to get taxis. Pat Saywood arranged for taxis to take us over the Pennines to Halifax from Manchester, where we were staying overnight. Arrived with about half an hour to go, but it happened at Mansfield that day, where there were issues, but there's still the same problems nowadays, aren't there? Southern Rail, an absolute joke.
Yes. We had local actor and comedian on a couple of weeks back, Mark Brailsford, who's made something of a career out of criticising Southern Rail in entertaining
Shocking.
fashion.
I mean, there's not going to be any travel to the Amex on Boxing Day, I believe.
Yeah, right.
It's going to be crazy.
Yeah,
I was looking forward to going to the game, but
it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, it will be. From where I live, just the other side of Bognor.
Yeah,
it will be very difficult. Yeah.
It's a shame, isn't it? Yeah. So what strikes me is obviously it's not like it's not ancient history or anything. Late 60s, early 70s, but your recall seems like absolute, almost photographic.
I do have a good memory from those days, and I suppose when you're directly involved in something, I find it somewhat easier to remember what happened. Some of my goals I remember very, 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 very well. Instances in games like the build-up to goal that Willie Irvine scored in 71-72.
Yeah.
I remember the build-up very, very well for
Yeah.
that. I think it's important.
Yeah,
it's important
definitely.
to me. It's important to my family that we reminisce about things when we have sort of time with the family. Yeah.
I agree, and it's obviously for us as fans who are never anywhere near good enough to. Obviously, Dan scored a goal at the Amex that he doesn't like to talk about.
1,000 ricochets.
Yeah. Oh, and that was the one of the goals. Yeah. But those of us who just watched it and idolised you, the players, and didn't get to do it, it's great to hear. Like, it doesn't sound like you took any of it for granted. Like you maybe you didn't get to play in the top flight or anything, but you must have had some big cup ties and
I mean, I suppose the first season that I signed as a professional in the summer of '66, it all reminds me of a Bryan Adams song. That, but
six string.
that's I played in the reserves early part of the season, but then of course I made my debut against QPR over the Christmas period, which was the start of my first team career at Brighton, really. And then within a few weeks we were drawn at home to after beating Aldershot after 2 matches, and we were drawn at home to Chelsea in the FA Cup, drew the first game 1-1 at home, and then we lost 4-0 at Stamford Bridge in front of about 55,000.
But the crowd at the Goldstone was 34,000, I think, and we were third division at the time.
Dan, yes. Yeah, fantastic crowd. And I think the week before, I'm right in saying that the crowd for the reserve team game, where they were selling tickets for the game, was it was 16,000. Incredible, really.
That's a pretty shrewd way of doing it if you think about it.
Yeah.
You've got to go to. I mean, I used to go to reserve games at the Goldstone because you could go free if you had a season ticket in the early 90s, but then that was because I was 17 and I wasn't doing much else. So I saw Stan Collymore score a hat-trick for Palace. What a great player. Anyway, let's not talk about Collymore. So what was it when you play for the reserves? How does the build-up compare to playing for the first team? Obviously you haven't got necessarily a big crowd, but in regards to your preparation as a player,
exactly the same.
Really?
Exactly the same. I mean, there's been a lot of controversy over the years, and I think when I first got in the first team at Brighton, there was a lot of controversy about players going out drinking on a Thursday night, and I was invited to participate in an interview on the pitch on the Friday morning after it came out, and I sort of had just a blank. The guy asked me a question, and part of me didn't want to answer it because I knew that certain players were going out drinking on a Thursday night. I didn't want to name them, so I just didn't say a word.
That was a good interview.
It was a great interview, yeah. The guy was looking at me. I think he was like, "Come on, say something." Then I just didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to commit myself. Archie was behind me listening in. Archie McCauley, the manager, and the other guys were nearby. So I just had a mental block and just didn't say a word. But I mean, as a player, I even from youth team, I would just have the same preparation for every game. Try to get plenty of sleep 2 or 3 nights before the game. Work hard in training, and pre-match I used to go through the same preparation. Have a walk around the ground an hour before the kick-off. Go in, get changed.
What did you eat? What did you eat?
Well, over the years it varied. At home, I just have a couple of poached eggs on toast.
Right.
At about 11, 12 o'clock for a home game. But over the years that the various managers came in and went, they had different ideas on what we ought to be having pre-match. Generally, we had pre-match meal about 3 hours before the kick-off. Some went for a steak, but my great friend Mr. Clough, the first pre-match meal we had with him was in the hotel he was staying at, just quite close to the Goldstone, and we were tucked into these beautiful looking fillet steaks, quite small but lovely, and there was some watercress on the plate, and he looked around and commented that most of the players that had finished their pre-match meal, i.e. ate the steak but left the watercress, were leaving the best part, most nutritious part of the lunch, the watercress. But
90% water.
Yeah, exactly.
but some managers we'd have just a piece of chicken that was perhaps boiled.
Boiled chicken?
Yeah, like breast of chicken. And others would just have a plate of pasta.
So the food was considered then? Because obviously,
yes.
I know obviously
Yes.
Arsene Wenger, when Arsene Wenger came to Arsenal, and he changed the nutrition, that side of things, and obviously
Right.
you got the cliche
Yeah.
of football magazines when in the 70s and 80s, what's your favourite food? Steak and chips.
Yeah.
What's your favourite drink? Lager.
Yeah.
And that was the
Yeah.
cliche for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, from day one at Brighton, we would meet at the Goldstone, train. After training, we'd all have a bath, get dressed, and go off in our own different ways. When Pat Sayward joined the club, it became a little bit more professional, as much that we trained up at the university, Sussex University, and we used the facilities there, and we would have a snack after training there before we went to our own ways, as it were. Obviously nowadays it's moved on so much, and players now have their own
did you
menus.
ever, like when you see the Albion bench, they throw, I think they're like little fruit sachets for energy. Did you during the game? Did you ever take on board fluids or
No,
anything like that?
No,
You just got on with it, I suppose.
No, and I mean, even if there was a break in play, and it was a hot Saturday afternoon, there was none of this, throwing water bottles onto the pitch or going to the side and having a quick sort of coaching hint from anybody, and as well as having a cold drink. No, there's none of that in my day.
So with the tactics, because obviously you didn't have video analysis back then, or maybe some managers did, but it would have been very primitive compared to now. But how much about the opposition were you told, like for example by Clough? Like, did he have a dossier on the opposition, say, right, John, you need to keep an eye on X, Y, Z because...
That was Revy's game, wasn't it? The dossier.
Yeah. Ah, right, okay.
And of course Howard Wilkinson. Howard was very, very hot on analysing opposing teams.
Okay.
And but no, I mean, we were lucky to see Clough and Taylor, to be honest with you. They turned up. If we were playing at home on the Saturday afternoon, they would expect us to turn up for training on a Friday afternoon. We would do a light training session, and then to begin with, we would go to the Metropole to stay overnight, and then we'd have a pre-match chat at the ground. But as soon as the game was finished, he might come in and say a few words, but then they'd disappear. And the next time you see them was either the afternoon before the next home game, or the morning of an evening game.
We are, of course, talking about Brian Clough, who you may have heard of. Was a very, very successful manager at Derby County and Nottingham Forest, winning the European Cup twice. He was Albion manager, which is what John's referring to, late 1973 through to the end of the 73-74 season. So he was here for 9 months. And you can read all about it in Bloody Southerners, the excellent new book by Spencer Vignis. And John is here to talk to us in a way about that time, because it's a fascinating time. It's the equivalent now of Jose Mourinho becoming manager of Accrington Stanley. That's the equivalent, basically. And Brian Clough all of a sudden appeared at the Albion. It obviously had nothing to do with being paid a fortune in those days. It was just purely a career move, obviously. But his time at the club, it depends who you talk to. So it's good to have someone who was actually there and played under him. So, as a man, John, what do you what?
Well, I
don't want to put you on the spot.
I did find it quite strange that when we were asked to meet up at the hotel in Lewes on the Friday evening before our home game against York in November that year, it was mentioned. Somebody said there's a rumour going around that we were getting Clough and Taylor, and I thought it was a joke, but we were sitting at this long table in in the hotel, and door opened. All of a sudden, Clough and Taylor walked in. He made a few humorous remarks about my long hair, and
Right.
Sully. He sort of seemed to find a few things about Peter quite humorous, but as time went on, we saw very little of that humour in his.
Oh, really?
During the time that he spent at the Goldstone and in dressing rooms before, after games. The other side of him was, I think I actually brought this up in my interview with Spencer over his book is a really excellent book. It's been released recently. The incident where I was just before I got married, my wife and I suggested to my wife that we were going to shopping in Brighton after the training session. She was sitting in my car in the car park by Frankie Howard's little cabin at the ground at the Goldstone, and he came in after the training session and said, I saw something today that I've never seen in my footballing career. And we all looked around to say, oh, what's happened? And then he picked on me. He said, if you bring your wife or partner ever again into the ground, leave her waiting for you whilst you trained in that car park, in the car, ever again, I'll put a bomb under it. Which I was quite sort of shocked, really. Of course, he wasn't ever going to do that, but just the very idea, he didn't actually bring the issue up with me prior to that scene in the dressing room, and if he'd had a quiet word with me and said, look, John, I don't think it's really right that you should bring your future wife in and keep her waiting for you after training. It's not good for you, it's not good for the club or whatever. Fine, but to bring it out and embarrass me in front of all the other players, it was probably typical Clough, really, and a little bit of a nowadays a Mourinho type action,
Yeah, I think so. And increasingly, there's the feeling that sort of behaviour is, rightly outdated, and it seems like I was actually going to mention to you, because growing up in the 70s and 80s, one of the things that actually put me off about football, the reason I don't think I got into it until a bit later, till we got to a cup final and the bug started to bite, was the sort of the machismo, the laddish culture. And you seem like a very, quiet, gentle kind of personality. And I wonder if you found that sort of machismo and alpha male testosterone fueled environment, did that suit you?
Well, I suppose we're all young.
You were different
at time.
But
I grew up in a family that was in a very little village called Yapton, and my parents were very, very quiet couple. My dad was a really good local footballer, cricketer,
right,
and they were very strict in my upbringing, and set standards that I try to maintain. But I suppose when you get into the company of other guys who, especially if they're a bit older than you join in with them.
Act up a bit,
and I must admit, I did go off the rails on a few occasions, unfortunately.
Sort of peer pressure.
Yes, I did sort of. I think it was one or two periods where I was having a bad time in the side, and I was left out of the side, particularly by Freddie Goodwin. And I sort of got a bit disillusioned, really, and spent more time probably socialising than I should have done.
Right.
But yes, it's easily done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very easily done, and we see it in today's football as, sort of there are instances where players are just, carried away with the success they're enjoying. And
is it okay if we talk Turkey a bit, talking about what sort of how well you weren't remunerated back in the day playing as a...
Well, yes, you're very welcome. I was an apprentice gas fitter with Seagas prior to me signing my first contract at Brighton, and I was on £11, and my weekly wage was with the Seagas.
This is, what, 65, 6?
That was, just before that, 64,
Right.
65.
Okay.
And then I was playing for Portsmouth Juniors at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And George Smith, their manager, decided to just keep a 16-strong professional group of players. He got rid of the A team, the reserve team, the youth team, and I was actually playing for them that day up at Chelsea when Joe Wilson visited my parents and asked them for their permission for me to join Brighton as an amateur. They agreed. I then started training at Brighton Tuesday, Thursday evenings, straight from work. And then I got injured in the reserves. And my first game back, having been able to come to the ground for treatment for a couple of weeks, I came back, and first came back was in the reserve team, and I played for the rest of the season in the reserve team, and then I signed my first professional contract in July '66, which was a good month because we won the World Cup.
Oh yeah, not too shabby.
So good things happened, not for me, but for the country. But my first professional contract wasn't a penny more than I was receiving as an apprentice gas fitter with Seagas.
Well, I would have guessed, yeah, similar sort of wage to
about £11.
Right. Yeah.
And out of that, I was expected to pay my train fare from Barnum to Hove
No
every day.
Got your meals though. Match day.
I had a pre-match meal.
Yeah.
That was on the club.
That was on the club. Yeah.
But no, as I said, I was very lucky. I had a very supportive mum and dad who looked after me extremely well at a time where I was trying to, prove myself and get into the first team at Brighton.
Amazing. Before we let you go, John, the thing that really comes across, as I say, I love your recall and your enthusiasm for it all. Again, look, for those of us who watch the game, love the game, still love the game. I'm 46 now. I feel just as giddy about watching the Albion as I did when I started going at age 10. What is it like to score a goal at home in front of however many thousands of fans? Does it live up to what we think it?
Well, it's a great feeling. There wasn't the celebrations for goals scored.
You just used to jump up in the air and punch.
You used to jump up in the air and sort of a handshake with the rest of your team.
You didn't do a dead fish or a rowboat or anything?
No. I think we were too worried about getting injured on the pitches that were around in those days, on the mud. Yeah, the mud. But no, it's a great feeling, and especially I've sort of played most of my games midfield, fullback, so it's an even better feeling when you score from those positions. Really, really good feeling.
Amazing. Well, it's been my absolute pleasure to talk to you this morning, John.
Welcome.
Love to have you back in sometime.
Yep, look forward to that. Yes. Yeah.
You're going to watch the Cardiff game on the telly today?
Well, I've got to walk back to my car, which hopefully the police haven't sort of.
This is the problem with our central Hove location.
Yeah, it's in the car park opposite the police station, so it's not far from here.
Okay.
And then it'll be about an hour and a half drive home, and so I've got the planner set on the Sky, so
fantastic.
Be there for you to watch this afternoon.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, John. We're going to take a break now. This is the Albion Mag Radio Show on 1BTN. We've got the team news in. We're going to do a little match preview in a moment. We need to just reflect briefly on Everton as well, but the team is in. Probably the most interesting thing, so Montoya's back in for Bruno. That's the first thing. We've got Knockaert obviously in for Jahanbakhsh. We knew that because we knew Jahanbakhsh wasn't travelling today. Okay. He's injured, so hopefully Knockaert can kick on from where he left off before he was, I think, quite unfairly dropped. Then March continues. My one sort of question thinking about the team yesterday was that I thought maybe we go for Bissouma ahead of March, but March keeps his place. Perhaps the most striking thing, we've just heard from jet setter Dean Kilford at the airport on his way, goodness knows where this time, is that Victor Gyökeres, the Swedish youth player, or under-23 player, is on the bench ahead of multi-million-pound signing Jurgen Locadia. He scored 3 in his last 4 games, and this actually ties in with our poll.
Yeah, good link there.
Because we were actually talking about Aaron Connolly, who is the goal machine for the under-23s at the moment. We put this out the other day, asking you listeners on social media whether you felt or what you felt the next best step for Aaron Connolly would be. The options being loan him out to a Championship club, or I suppose you could have included a League One club in that maybe. Send him abroad for the experience, stay with the under-23s and carry on doing what he's doing, or promote to the first team, which is obviously what's happened with Victor Gyökeres. So before I give the results out, I wonder what Dan's just saying goodbye to John. Dan,
Yes.
What would you do with Victor Gyökeres? Would you have promoted him to the bench?
I'm impressed with your pronunciation.
I'm guessing it. I'm winging it. We'll have him in.
I think with it's obviously the management team know exactly what they're doing. Of course. When you've got a young player that's exceptional, do you remember David Jipp?
Yes, we've mentioned him on here before in this exact same context.
So he was a goal machine for the reserves.
Yes.
But he couldn't do it in the first team.
No.
So I think everyone's personality is different, and the management obviously know what the players like, what their triggers are, the best way to deal with them. I would just love any young player in the reserves or in the under-23s as it now is, just to give them a shot straight in the first team. But I realised that football's a lot more, what's the word, scientific, if you like. There's a lot more preparation, there's a lot more analysis. Yeah, there's a lot more at stake as well, exactly. And as much as Murray is brilliant, he is 35 and we've been relying on him. So if we've got players that are younger, that are scoring hatfuls of goals, give them a run out.
Dean Kilford has messaged in to say Gyökeres.
Oh, right, okay. I'm not even going to attempt it.
Gyökeres. So, poll results. Only 3% of you feel that Aaron Connolly should go abroad. 7% reckon he should stay with the under-23s. That's quite low, I think. 34%, myself included, think he should do what they've done with Gyökeres and promote him into the first team squad, at least on the bench kind of thing in games like this. But I'm perfect. I think Gyökeres is bigger, so I think maybe that's the thinking for promoting him earlier. Right. Maybe Aaron Connolly's even still got some growing to do.
Do we know how old he is?
He's quite young. I think he's 18.
Oh, really?
I think Connolly is. I think.
I was talking about the other chap that I can't
think
pronounce.
He might be slightly older, but forgive me if I'm wrong. I don't have the stats in front of me. But loan to the champion. Oh, he's 17, Aaron Connolly. Thanks, Dean Kilford. He doesn't need to be here to host.
17?
Yeah. So, loan to the championship was the poll winner with 56%.
That was my vote.
Yeah. Okay. Victor's 20. And Aaron Connolly's 17, so it does make sense that the Swede should come into the first team squad before the Irishman, and he's got 3 years on him.
Well, the old cliche: if you're good enough, you're old enough.
Well, there is that,
etc., etc. But maybe that's a bit old school now.
I don't know. What age did? For every, you can always think of examples where it worked and
Wayne
examples
Rooney,
where it didn't.
Yeah, Wayne Rooney's the obvious one.
Yeah, Messi, obviously.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah, but then there have been others where they've played a game or two and then disappeared. Or
do you remember Freddie Adu?
Famously, he was
14.
Yeah. There's a 14-year-old goal scorer in the
I saw that. Paraguay, yeah.
League last. And you just don't know. You cannot tell.
The Ascension Derby.
Yes.
Was.
Yes.
I think that's the way you say it. Ascension, the capital of Paraguay.
Yeah, I think so.
Is that right, Ali?
I haven't got a clue.
Consultants. We should, at least reflect back briefly on last week's defeat. I don't think it was a great surprise.
No.
3-1 at Everton. We had 38% of the ball. We had 5 shots to their 14. We had 3 shots on target to their 3. We had 4 corners to their 6. We've still never won away at Everton in any competition, drawing 2 and losing 5 of 7 visits. And Dunk's goal, that's his 12 league goals for Brighton now, and that's his 10th header. I was there. It was very nice to add another ground to my list. I think it's been there since 1884. I think Everton have been there since 1892.
Yeah,
it shows.
And they moved from Anfield, obviously.
That's right. Yes. It was very atmospheric. It's like really nice to go back to 40,000 people or whatever were there. It had just that mood of an old school football match, even though obviously what was on the pitch was there was a Brazilian scoring one. I mean, that first goal they scored was. And
to be fair, we caught them on a good day.
They were just really good.
They were excellent. Yeah, and that does happen sometimes.
Yes. We couldn't really live with him. I think there were some serious concerns about Jahanbakhsh even before he got injured, just in terms of, I think, again, I know I'm always positive about the new signings. I think he will bed in. I think he will make it, but I don't think he's got the measure of the league yet, and I don't think he's got the measure of what Houghton needs him to do. Knockaert, while he can be, as we've discussed many times, a bit try too hard, a bit headless chicken, he doesn't ever stop, whereas Jahanbakhsh just kept not tracking his runner.
But what you've just said about being ready and adapting to the English game, which is a very fair point, an accurate one, if you just think of it in financial terms, £16 million for a player, he's not quite ready yet. It's November, and he's been here since, July?
Yeah.
And you think, OK, so at what point... He costs £16 million.
Yeah, but that's not...
I know.
That's not that... Yeah,
exactly.
I know.
That's what I mean. It's because obviously it is relative that he has to bed in and get used to English football. It is relative that the style in England is different from the Netherlands, etc., etc. But he costs £16 million.
Yeah. Yeah, hurry up, mate. Yeah. Anyway, he's injured today, so that gives Knockaert the chance. I'm struggling to think what else to think about the game. Yeah, we were just... there were too many off days when the central midfielders are overwhelmed and outpassed. They looked Kyle had his worst game since he's come back. I would have said he was very headless chicken mode. Stevens was having one of those games where he gave the ball away too often. He looked flustered. And Murray didn't do anything wrong because he never really had a kick, I wouldn't have said. Centre halves ended up making mistakes because they were under so much pressure. It's just a case of one of the teams that is going to end the season probably 7th or 6th is still a league above us. They basically realised their potential in that game. Yeah. Because they've spent a lot of money. Richarlison cost 50 million, I think. But Brazilian international scores goals against Brighton & Hove Albion.
And I mean, that's a lovely sentence in itself, although it's obviously negative because it means we've conceded a goal. But I mean, the fluidity of that first goal, what can you do? There's nothing you can do about that. No. It happens sometimes. As long as it doesn't happen too often, we'll be all right.
I know I think it was something of an in-joke, but the Everton stadium announcer kept calling him Rich Arlison, with a very distinct and obvious pause. So I think he's calling him Rich.
It's always good to know the in-jokes at other clubs.
Yeah. There was no... I think there was a little bit of contretemps between the two sets of fans, but as you'd expect from both Brighton and Everton, it was nothing major.
That's a great word. I love that word.
There were a couple of tedious posturing. I'll see you outside then by the net.
When they'd run a mile, if they actually.
Yeah.
So very brave when there's a few hundred people around them.
Yes,
but not quite so. Anyway.
And our friend of the show Neil had taken his young daughter Amy there. Had to explain what the old Nescafe Gareth Hunt handshake was on the way home.
It's an exemplar of great coffee, I think. Apparently.
So Cardiff today in 45 minutes time. I can't believe it. Steve Wilson of Match of the Day on the BBC. I like this sentence. Brighton continue to grow as a club and are starting to look like part of the Premier League's furniture. So much so that it's easy to forget they have only had 5 top-flight seasons in their entire history.
I'm going to pull that apart and just grow as a club. I mean, there's terminology to use. Grow as a club. We've been selling the ground out for 7 years. We had how many years in the Championship? 6. Second season in the Premier League. Yeah. I mean, it's not like it's just happened. It's been a continual growth since we. Yeah. So grow as a club.
He says continue to grow.
Yeah, I don't like that phraseology personally. On the pitch, grow on the pitch maybe. The team's evolving, but as a club, I don't think. Well, we can't grow any bigger because the ground's full every week.
We can have one more tier down theoretically.
Oh, what, on the North Stand?
Yeah.
That would look a bit weird, wouldn't it?
They've talked about it.
Have they?
Yeah, Barber talked about it. He said it would be very difficult, but I can see it. Like if we end up in the Premier League for another 2 or 3 years, I could see it happening.
But the thing is now,
that revenue.
Yeah, but the revenue is peanuts compared to the TV money. So if the stadium's selling it, I would rather the ground was full up every week and there was a waiting list than we do put an extra 5,000 seats in. We may get relegated and then we've got empty seats.
Yeah. Yes, and we've seen recently, I think the behind closed doors games that we've seen televised recently really have been a good reminder to everybody in the game that you need to have fans at the game.
Football without fans is absolutely nothing at all. And anyone who says otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about. Yes. Simple as that, really.
I agree. So the Bluebirds boss, Neil Warnock, turns 70 next month, making him Houghton's senior by 10 years. This is from the Argus. He said of the Seagulls boss, he's underrated, Chris. His achievements speak to themselves. for themselves, possibly. And sometimes you've got to be careful what you wish for. Newcastle were in a super position when they got rid of him. He's bad for us as managers. He's so nice. He gives us a bad reputation.
The same Neil Warnock who said in the post-match interview after the Notts County playoff final defeat,
91.
he was the manager of Notts County. I'd like to manage Brighton one day. He was quoted as saying that. Thankfully, it's never happened. Well, I quite like him.
I like him. I think he's genuinely a funny character.
Yeah.
Like the game will be much poorer when he retires.
He's a bit too reactionary sometimes.
Yes.
And
Totally one-eyed.
And it annoys me when people say passion, because it isn't passion.
No, sometimes he's unpleasant.
It's hot-headedness. Yeah. But like you say, he's real. And, we need real people in the game. When you've got people... Yeah, let's... could go off on a proper tangent
I like
there.
just wind it. I just give Dan a topic and he's off. Cardiff midfielder Harry Arter will serve a one-match ban. I think that's good news for us. I think he's a good player, Arter. 5 bookings this season. Jazz Richards is missing out with a hamstring. Kenneth Zohore remains sidelined with a calf problem. Joe Riles is back in contention. Obviously, I suppose one element of note is that Joe Bennett will be playing left back for us. He played for us unimpressively on loan.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he was young.
What is it with us and left backs on loan?
We had a lot of them because we didn't buy one for years. We had Wayne Bridge, who was superb.
Wayne Bridge, I remember saying to my dad, because if you think about when you've seen him before on Match of the Day highlights, it's when his team is probably conceding a goal.
Yeah.
And he's an England international. So if you haven't seen him play for a full game, you think, what's so good about him? Then you see him play for your club, and you realise, wow, he was an exceptional player for us. And then Stephen Ward.
Yes.
First team, Burnley.
Struggle this season, but he's played for Leicester and Burnley.
Ridgewell wasn't a left back, was he?
No.
And then obviously Matt Richards with Dean. Yeah. 3 loan spells. Yeah, left back's always been a bit troublesome for us.
Yeah, it still is really. I still hear. We probably shouldn't get into this now because we've only got 10 minutes to go. But I still think some of the criticism aimed at Bong is not just about how he plays. But
I think the thing is, because going back to, I think was the caller to 606 was that post Everton, the Ben chap.
Oh, the last week
suggesting that, and obviously
that was met with
Robbie Savage. Absolutely lost it live on air, and he's absolutely right. It's like you need to
Savage talks sense.
Yeah, you need to have a reality check really. Because Houghton's done a superb job, absolutely superb. Yeah, sometimes his tactics may be, but more often than not, he gets it absolutely right. So, to suggest that he should be leaving is absurd.
Yeah, we haven't actually played that well recently, but in a way, that's really
football.
Encouraging.
Yeah, that's football. It happens.
We got 9 points out of 12.
Yep.
And we haven't played that well, and we're missing 2 of our quality, most sort of high quality footballers, I would say, especially in the case of Pascal Gross, who was obviously instrumental in virtually probably 2/3 of our goals last season.
When you hear a manager or a pundit say, he's got a lot of quality, what a ridiculous thing to say. What does it mean?
Yeah, you've got to actually quantify the quality.
Exactly, you've got to quantify the quality, exactly. Yes. Good alliteration.
I did, so that's why I said high quality, didn't I?
You did? No, it wasn't a criticism of
I thought you were calling me out.
No, not at all. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, just say what's the ultimate modern football cliche? He's a top player with the potential to become a top player.
Yes, even better alliteration. Superb.
We've lost just one of our last 11 league matches against Cardiff. Won 3, drawn 7. That's pretty good. We lost 4-1 away in 2016.
Didn't we used to play them on Thursday nights at Withdean? I'm sure we did.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, because that's when their hooligan element was at the fore.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was anything.
There was that documentary about Cardiff hooligans, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to say the name of it. I'm not going to plug it in any way, shape or form.
Absolute shambles.
Yeah.
Brighton have managed just one win in their last 19 away Premier League games, though. So we have 14 points after 11 league matches, 1 fewer than this stage last season. But actually, if you compare position for position points against, we're actually doing as well or better, I think. Always find a silver lining spin. The Seagulls and Manchester City are the only clubs not to have lost a Premier League point from a winning position in 2018-19.
That is a stat and a half. That is stat of the week.
If we score, we're
going to win.
Until that record ends.
What a brilliant stat.
Yeah. Glenn Murray's 6 Premier League goals is bettered only by Eden Hazard, Sergio Aguero and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
I love talking about Murray in the same sentence as
I
players
know.
like that. It's fantastic, isn't it?
I know. It's surreal. Also, another omen or stat or possibly irrelevant thing, depending on your school of beliefs. Chris Hughton is unbeaten in 5 meetings with Cardiff manager Neil Warnock, winning 4 and keeping 5 clean sheets.
Wow.
So, 1-0.
Your stats are on fire today, mate, and I'm going for 2-0.
Okay. Mark
Yeah.
Lawrenson's going 1-0. The Bluebirds will see this one as winnable, and I think they will pick up 3 vital points.
Do you think, should we do a sweepstake now for post-match analysis on matches? We should be beating teams like Brighton. Do you think that's going to come up? I think it will, won't it?
Yeah. Both sets of fans will.
Yeah.
We should be beating teams like X, Y. Paul Merson went 1-0 Cardiff as well. WWE wrestlers Dolph Ziggler and his tag team partner Drew McIntyre have gone for a 1-1 draw. Dan says 2-0. I played the game on FIFA yesterday. 1-1.
Yeah, okay.
Glenn Murray puts us ahead. I had 2 great chances to seal it. I can't remember who with now actually, but should have made it 2-0 twice, as it were, or 3-0 depending on how you look at it. But in the end, we conceded a late goal. Ryan at his near post. Oh, it was a good goal though. It was a bit like Ronaldo's the other night.
That could be... What a goal that was.
I know.
So, wow.
But then the celebration. And have you seen the picture where
Steve Bruce's
face in his
That
hand?
is strange. But when I was listening to it on the radio doing the washing up, and you know the way commentators get a bit carried away when there's a player who's exceptional just because they're exceptional anyway.
Yeah.
And he talked about the goal and I thought, it can't be that good. And then I looked at it and I thought, yeah, it was that good.
Yeah.
Absolutely exquisite.
Dean Kilford, regular host, has predicted confusingly both 0-0 and 4-3 to the Albion.
Is he all right? Are you all right, Dean?
It's on the medication again. We're going to have to rattle through the other bits and bobs. We've got a brief line on the women, which is that the ladies are back in action next Sunday at the Broadfield, 2 p.m. kickoff against Reading. The under-23s, obviously we've got Gio Keres being promoted to the first team. They are awaiting a new date for the Sussex Senior Cup tie with Lewis. That was postponed due to a waterlogged pitch on Wednesday night. Oh, message in. Tom, it was Tom that predicted 0-0. Dean is definitely going for the 4-3 because he's nuts. He's got holiday fever. He's D-Mob happy. Brief non-league roundup then. White Hawk in 19th, still above the drop zone. Maybe they're not in 19th. I'm not sure. That might be old data. Anyway, White Hawks still above the drop zone despite a 2-0 defeat to Tonbridge Angels. 2 late goals for the league leaders now makes it 10 games without a win in all competitions. They are not in action until Monday away at Carshalton. Lewis suffered defeat to Kingstonian in the league, which sees them drop to 5th. They are at home in the FA Trophy today against Merthyr Town. Worthing scored 2 goals in the final 7 minutes against 10-men Folkestone Invicta to win 3-2 and climb to 4th in the league. Then they smashed Uckfield for 6 in a Sussex Senior Cup, running out 6-2 winners. That trophy will be the Albion's again this season, of course. A big game today at the Bibby Financial Services Stadium against Chesham in the FA Trophy. Bognor Regis played in their 3rd 2-2 draw in a row. Sounds fun, but also frustrating. This time in the league against Leatherhead. Their home tie with Seaford Town in the Sussex Senior Cup was postponed on Tuesday as Seaford couldn't raise a team.
Oh dear.
I would have turned out. They are away to Walton Casuals in the FA Trophy before a home league game on Tuesday night against Corinthian Casuals. All the Casuals. All in their Farah slacks. And Fred Berries. Climb up to 20th. Burgess Hill, that is. Climb up to 20th and off the bottom after a superb 3-2 win away at Margate. The Hillians were 2-0 down after 30 minutes. They're also through to the 3rd round of the Sussex Senior after a 1-0 win over Bexhill. They host Kingstonian today at the Green Elephant Stadium.
The Green Elephant Stadium.
Yeah.
Magnificent name.
Is that a local Thai restaurant or
I don't know. It sounds like it should be.
an insurance company?
Well, obviously there is... Or what if it was the White Elephant Stadium, then there could be a potential joke there.
Yes.
But I can't think what it is.
keep working on that.
Yeah,
You've got 2 minutes. Storeham are out of the Sussex Senior Cup after a 1-0 defeat at home to Three Bridges. They travel to Little Common today. Saltdean are also out of the Sussex Senior Cup, losing 4-2 at home to Hastings. That's 3 defeats in 5 for Saltdean after only losing 2 of their previous 19. Form's a funny thing, isn't it?
Certainly is.
They are at home to Langley Wanderers today. Don't forget, you can catch up with all the best highlights of Sussex football on YouTube. Search the Sussex Football Show, hosted by
Our very own Dean Kilford.
the slick and lovely Dean Kilford. New shows available every Monday. That's us. We're all caught up as a rapid fire roundup.
Big thanks to Ali from Loft 55 who bought me in my new jumper while the show was on.
Nice. It's a lovely custard yellow.
Yeah, custard yellow. I was thinking more mustard, but I think you might be right.
I think it's custard.
Yeah.
Although the lighting in here is quite subdued.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well, we'll work it out as the day goes on. You watching the game, Dan?
Yes. I think so.
In a public house?
No, absolutely not. I'm not drinking today. I might watch it at home. I haven't decided yet.
Yeah, me too. Should be fun. Right. I think that's it from the Albion Mag Radio Show. You've been listening to us on 101.4 FM and or online, DAB Digital.
The next show.
Hello.
Oh.
Tim.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, Burnt Toast. I've got loads of soul, funk stuff. You might detect in my voice a bit,
Husky?
Bit husky. Yeah, I was crazily sharing peanut butter toast crusts with my daughter, who's clearly ill. But greed's got the better of me. I just went in like a seagull. And which ties in nicely, actually, doesn't it? Yeah. Brilliant. Should have written that, shouldn't I?
All right, so
you can have it.
Your poorly burnt toast. After this, our final tune today from our friends at Jalapeno Records. We'll see you next time.